Each setup should consist of at least one good calibrated monitor for true color display. I usually use Mac because they're used a lot in graphics. It doesn't matter if it's a laptop or a desktop computer. It's also recommended to use a pair of monitor speakers because headphones are not good for mixing and working on long projects. Most facilities have setups with at least 2 to 3 monitors, which is highly recommended and makes working with hours of footage a lot easier to get organized. If a project is very large, working for days at a time on a laptop can just get confusing. The more monitors, the more space there is to organize bins, and it's just much better for workflow and organizing footage and working across different sequences. Usually one monitor is used for organizing the media in bins, and one monitor is designated for the timeline and clip windows. The third monitor is a reference monitor to check the final output. Those monitors are usually broadcast monitors, and they also display true colors and underscore, so the full frame can be monitored. Some edit suites have additional monitors to display vector or waveform monitors if heavy grading is involved. It just makes it easier to do large complex projects on a laptop. Could just be time consuming and wasting time. There can never be enough RAM. It all depends on the footage that is worked with. There should be at least enough RAM to handle HD. And now with more 4K and 8K coming up, it's just a lot of RAM is needed. So it's always best to check the specs of the computer before deciding on buying a camcorder. Because it's just annoying if a computer is too slow and can't handle the footage. Another option would be to convert the footage, if it's shot in 4K, 8K, but the laptop or desktop can only handle HD, then it's easier to convert the footage. So the more RAM, the better for real-time performance and for rendering. It just speeds up everything enormously. Also, the processor of any computer needs to be strong enough to handle the data flow. Another important factor is enough storage. Small projects is fine to use the internal storage of a computer, but external storage is needed if hours of footage are involved, and it makes it easier to archive. Once a project is done editing, I would always back up on external drives that can be put away. At some point it has to be done not to fill up the internal hard drive. If working with interlaced footage, a hard drive needs to be spinning. It's just down to the factor that interlaced footage has 2 fields making up a frame, and just the way they get stored on the drive. So drives need a minimum 7,200 RPM. Anything else would result in a slow workflow and would cause crashes. SSD drives do not spin, and that can cause problems working with interlaced. But they're totally fine when working with progressive footage. Thunderbolt drives are the same as SSD drives. They're okay with progressive footage. Most software recommend the use of a 3-button mouse for certain shortcuts, and they just make life easier after a while once the editor gets used to a certain workflow. But they're not necessary.